Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are getting back to our original first episode. We're celebrating our 5th year anniversary.
5 years.
5
It's
years of comic book craziness. And in the first episode, it was like we had, limited resources. I think we recorded that on an iPhone, and like the sound is terrible. And
I think we put it like in between us and we like sat facing each other and then we're just like had a chat.
we just talked about Batman Hush. So yeah, we thought it would be fun for our 5th year anniversary to go back and redo Batman Hush and maybe correct anything we got wrong, or maybe stuff we got right, or is it as good as we thought it was or bad as we thought it was. So
And it's in general, I say we were talking about because it is important as far as like this is the one that we hold to. This is like our baseline for everything we've done on this podcast. Since then, we've been like, all right, is it as well, not spoiler, it's our first episode. Like we both were like, Hush was like a mid comic. It was like Matt gave it a 4.5 and I gave it a 5 the first time we read it. And so we were both like, okay, this is our baseline going forward. Is it better than Hush? Is it worse than Hush? Like that's kind of like where this all spawned. And then, obviously as we went along, we got a little more like tinkered with how we rated things, but in general, like this has always been our baseline for the last 5 years.
yeah, I think the difference between how I feel about this comic now and how I felt then was I've read a lot more DC from this era, and I just have a different understanding of what was going on in that, in DC at the time. So it made it more enjoyable for me, actually. So don't want to like spoil our, my thoughts or whatever, but like, yeah, I definitely thought this was better this time than I did the first time we read it. So, but yeah, so just get into it. Hush is by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee. This was like the first thing Jim Lee did after like, I don't know, being away from art for like 10 years, because he was in charge of Wildstorm Studios, and then he sold Wildstorm to DC, and then they were like, hey, you want to do a Batman comic? And everybody was like, oh my God, Jim Lee's going to draw Batman. This is the biggest thing of all time. So it was a pretty big, thing happening for him to draw. And I got to say, still love his art. It's all fantastic. I don't know what I was talking about in the first podcast we did, because I love the pouches. I love the 90s of it.
Yeah. And if anybody has needs pouches, like Batman is definitely like...
Right, but everybody's got pouches in this, but I was perfectly fine with it this time. I was like, in fact, it's even fun. It made it like nostalgic for me or whatever. And I don't know. I think I know what was going on in my brain, which was, 5 years ago, I was probably like a little bit more too cool for school. I'm like hipster Matt or whatever, where I'm like, that's so 90s or whatever. Like, it's not cool. And now I'm like, I'm fully on board with this 90s stuff. It's fun. It's cool. I'm a dork. Who cares? So I enjoyed the art a lot more this time around. I still had a problem with Catwoman's boots. They did not look good to me still, but everything else was fine. So, and then Jeff Loeb, of course, is our, podcast patron saint of Batman, because we've done like a shit ton of his.
That's true. This is one half of like the quote unquote our podcast team of Jeff Loeb and the late great Tim Sale. So so that it's true. Definitely going back and rereading this now and having that love and appreciation of him was definitely a lot more like, okay, like I see the care in the Batman story. So
yeah. And so unlike the first one, we didn't really have our stuff down. So we kind of just like jumped all over the place with stuff that came to our brains as we were talking about it. And this, we're going to go through like the actual issues. It is a 12 issue series, so we might skip over some stuff because we don't have like 3 hours to sit here and talk about it. But um, it is like a good, hefty story, a lot of red herrings, a lot of mystery. So if we get stuff wrong, apologize, but there's a lot of like, we might have missed something that explains something, that we had a question about, but we didn't know. Because like there's just a lot going on in this comic. So, um, but we start off with Batman. He is on the trail of Killer Croc, who has kidnapped, was it the mayor's daughter or something like that? What is it?
Yeah, I believe the mayor's
Yeah,
daughter.
the mayor's daughter, and he needs money. We don't really know why. Batman doesn't know why. Oh, it's not the mayor's daughter; it's the mayor's son.
Son,
My bad.
son. Yeah, sorry, it's
Um,
Edward.
and so Batman's even like, this is weird. This is not a Killer Croc crime. He doesn't care about money usually. He doesn't care about this. But when we see Killer Croc, he is a gigantic monster, which looks pretty odd um, for Killer Croc. If you've ever seen him, he just kind of has like a human body with kind of crocodile skin and whatnot. But in this, he's like mutated. He's big. Now, I don't know why I didn't get it the first time when we read it, but they literally say it's because he's like been mutating like out of control and he doesn't know why. And that's why he gets the money, because he was told, if I do this, I will get a cure for this mutation and I don't want to look like a freak. Um, and in the first podcast, we talked about how weird he looked. So that's why, because he's mutating. But I will say, Jim Lee could have made his face look a little bit more discernible, because I still stand by my thoughts on like him turning, like the panels go all the way around him a lot. And sometimes I'm like, I can't tell what I'm looking at all still.
He's got so many like scales and like flesh on him that's moved that you can tell like that's what they're saying is mutating, and like especially in his face area, that like sometimes you really can't tell where he's like, okay, he's probably looking straight ahead, right? But you can't really tell necessarily from the panel itself because it's very there's lots of creases and crevices of uh on his mutating body. So yeah, it's a little off.
I think
It's
it's because
definitely
his
like
eyes are like sunken in and they're kind of covered by pieces of mutating skin and stuff too. So if you can't see it the human body or the human mind recognizes a face pretty easily. If you just put two dots and a line underneath it on anything, your mind will go, oh, that's a face. Um, and so I think it was missing that aspect, like the two dots in symmetrical, like parallel or whatever, where they're like across from each other. They should, that would say like, oh, this is a face and it's looking at me. So anyway, Batman fights Killer Croc. As he's fighting Killer Croc and takes him out, the money gets grabbed by someone. We find out that later that is Catwoman that steals it. And as Batman delivers the mayor's son to the police outside, he follows Catwoman because he sees her taken off. And as he's chasing her, they have an interesting relationship in this. And I actually liked the relationship. It was still like, the will they, won't they thing. But in this, there was much more of a will they, or they will, I guess.
yeah, it definitely emphasized like they have deep feelings for each other, and it's just like, can both of them trust that Catwoman's not gonna do something bad, and Batman's gonna be able to like not be like you're doing bad things.
Yeah, yeah. And so as he's chasing her through the city, she's like, swinging from rooftops and stuff just like him. And he's swinging over Crime Alley. And as he's about to catch her, all of a sudden something cuts his line and he falls down into Crime Alley from very high up. He can't save himself. He tries to grab a gargoyle, but it breaks and he falls down very injured and almost gets accosted by a bunch of uh, homeless people that live down there. And I don't know if they're homeless, but they're ruffians, we'll say. They live in Crime Alley, whatever that means. So, um, and then we see like Poison or Catwoman arrive at wherever she was going with the money, and it turns out she is working under the spell or whatever of Poison Ivy. She's like being mind controlled by Poison Ivy. Because if you didn't know, Poison Ivy has like lipstick that she can like kiss you with, and that will like put you under her spell. So, John, are we to believe that Catwoman made out with Poison Ivy?
I mean, that's where my thought goes with it. It says no man or woman can resist her, and it's understandable, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fully on board with it. I was just wanting your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's nice to know that like she is still a scientist and she's still working with her plants to figure out like, oh, this one is a kiss of death, but oh, if I make this lipstick, like this is a mind control, so that's cool.
She's an entrepreneur. It's a nice, strong woman, businesswoman. That's
Exactly.
yeah. And so we're not sure exactly why she wants the money, but she wanted the money, and that's like why Killer Croc was actually working for her too. I don't know if he was under her spell. I think he just wanted the mutation cure. But what do you think about the way he draws Poison Ivy? I don't think we mentioned how Jim Lee draws Poison Ivy. I fucking love it. But your
I
thoughts?
absolutely love it. Yeah, no, this is like so where I would say where your Catwoman, not this outfit
Tim
specifically,
Sale
but
Catwoman.
Tim Sale Catwoman, I would say this Poison Ivy outfit is pretty awesome.
I agree. Jim Lee Poison Ivy is pretty amazing. Leaves cover in the right places, but
Yeah.
you know,
I love the vines, yeah, especially like on her like you see like part of the brown part of the vines on the hands, and then
mhm,
like then the leaf coverage starts going up,
yeah.
and then she's even got like some vines in and out of her hair a bit. Like it's cool, yeah. It's very well. I mean, yes, Poison Ivy is very
All
like
right, John, calm
scantily
down.
clad,
Calm
but
down.
she's very drawn very coolly as well.
You're getting flustered. It's fine. Heavy breathing. Heavy breathing. Yeah. So anyway, we cut away from that scene once Poison Ivy gets the money from Catwoman, and we start issue 2. Batman is in the alley. He's passed out, and these guys are trying to take off his mask. And this is one thing about this era of Batman that I now know I didn't really have appreciation for before. But this is the era of Batman where like he's thought everything 20 steps ahead or more. So like if you try to take off his mask, it shoots like gas at you, and then if you try to rip off his mask again, it electrocutes you, and like there's all this stuff, and then like his ability to think ahead comes up many more times in this comic, where like he's not just one step ahead of you, he's like 400 steps ahead of you. And I think that's why you're supposed to think like Hush is so crazy, like ominous, like as a bad guy, or like, you know, like a threat, because he seems to be ahead of Batman. And at this era, Batman is ahead of everybody. So how could that be, and I don't think I appreciated that when we read it the first time. I just didn't know, I hadn't read enough about Batman during this era. Um, what do you think? I mean, did you feel the same way?
Yeah, no, I think knowing more, the more that because I've read some now. Not obviously, I've not read the gambit of Batman comics that you have now, but I have a lot more love and appreciation for DC now,
I mean, I
especially
have a
than.
PhD in Batman now, so
That's true. If anybody does, it's you know Tim Kane is the creator, right? Bob Kane.
Bob
Wait a
Kane,
minute,
Tim
Bob Kane.
Kane,
Sorry, because
and you know what? Bob Kane is not the creative Batman. Jerry Robinson is.
oh, Jerry Robinson. Okay, why do I have Bob Kane in my head? Is that just the animated series?
No. I mean, Bob Kane took credit, but
Oh, okay.
um, is it
Well, my
Jerry?
bad.
Why am I saying the wrong name now? Now you have me self conscious. I believe it's Jerry Robinson. God damn it! I got to look this up while we're talking. You talk.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm saying is that yes, my now love and appreciation of DC has exponentially grown to where that like yeah, like I totally see a lot more meat and potatoes in this comic too, where previously I was like, well, there's so many like weird and odd like things in this. And again, yeah, I think that's like that may be again like the five before is like, well, if you gave this to anybody and they never ran a Batman, like it's fun, but there may be some things you don't quite get. Whereas now, like having that little bit of deeper knowledge, I'm like, okay, like I definitely see things that I didn't, like you said, like I didn't see before. And it definitely makes Hush seem like a more compelling villain because yeah, if Batman has thought of a way to be on top of and like like you said, 24 400 steps above everybody and ahead to like be able to take, have like if the Justice League goes crazy, he has a way to like take out each and every one of them. Then how is there someone who is steps ahead of Batman? Because that's pretty crazy.
Right, yeah. And okay, so I was right. Jerry Robinson is the guy I'm thinking of. So, just a little history. Bob Kane took credit for creating Batman, but all he did was he did like the Stan Lee where he's like the word Batman and then gave the art job to Jerry Robinson. And then uh, Jerry Robinson proceeded to draw him, create every villain that matters, like Joker and all that stuff. Everything you know about Batman, the origin story, all of that is from Jerry Robinson. And then Bob Kane was like, "It's mine." And
Well,
so,
Jerry Robinson, I apologize.
yeah,
Well, he's not with us
he
anymore, I
did.
assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
he
that's
died
old
poor and
news.
homeless or whatever. So,
Damn.
um, anyway, and I both agree and disagree with you now. Um, I think this is perfectly fine for a new reader, but if you do know all the DC stuff, it just adds to it. I think what happened the first time we read this was we read it too fast. And also because as the first podcast, we didn't really like absorb the material the same way now. Um, and I'll like go into that a little bit more later on, but like this time I felt like I fully got it or like grasped every issue. And also, this was a monthly comic. This came out from like issues 609 to 619 or 608 to 619. And um this is like, it's supposed to be read over a year. So if you think about it like that, if you take every issue on its own and then think like, oh, there's a month in between each one, I feel like this would be a fantastic like read month to month, as the mystery builds and everything. So that's like one thing I was thinking of because I noticed a lot of books nowadays are only written to be read in like trade form. They don't think about the month to month thing. But back then that was much less common. So, when I read Hellblazer or whatever from, the 80s, it's not meant to be collected or they didn't know it was going to be collected. So every issue kind of is supposed to stand on its own or lead into the next story. And I think that also is why like not every issue in this follows into the next one. Like sometimes it jumps time or whatever, and you're like, oh wait, where are we now? So um but anyway, let's get back to the story because we got a lot to cover. So Batman, he's in the alley. These guys are trying to break into his costume and figure out who he is, but the costume is kind of fighting back. And then right as he's about to get shot by one of these guys, Huntress shows up, and I still don't know exactly why she's here, but she is definitely at this time part of the Bat family. So if you don't know, she's like Earth 2 Batman's daughter. She is the daughter of Selena Kyle and him from Earth 2. So that's like a whole other dimension or whatever, right? So a whole other reality. So I don't know yet. I haven't read that part of it yet, but how she gets to Earth 1 or Earth Prime or whatever this is. Um, and so um, she, but she's on the team now with, Robin, who is Tim Drake, and Nightwing, and Jason Todd is at this moment dead still. And that's something we didn't know either when we read this the first time. We'll get to that later, but Jason Todd was something we got wrong as well. So anyway, Huntress comes, kicks all these guys' asses, saves Batman, and we see an interesting shot of a man watching her put Batman into the Batmobile, and it drives away, and then she gets on her motorcycle, drives away, and we see a man like standing on a roof watching this. He's got bandages all over his face, and he's saying like, I don't know, what would you know? Did you know what this was from? Some kind of like line. He's quoting something all the time.
No, I assumed like maybe he's quoting like Shakespeare or something.
Literature,
Yeah.
like what's the Sun Tzu or whatever, like some kind of
The
thing
art
you
of
would
war.
exactly. Um, so
He's like Khan.
exactly, yeah. Um, so and the one thing, uh, like Poison Ivy, they did mention like that the kid or like the mayor had something to do with like poison, like a defoliant that was like being made by this company. And the mayor was like a shadow partner in this company, and that's why like possibly she was doing it. Like they hinted at that, but they don't really go into that more than it was. Um, but Batman's Batmobile takes him back to the Batcave. Obviously, Alfred takes care of him, um, and then uh, it looks pretty bad. Like Batman needs some help, and then all of a sudden Alfred's like, "Wait a second, your finger's twitching," and then he's like, "Oh no, it's Morse code," and it says like, "Get me Tommy, Tommy Elliot," and so um, now we get the reveal that like Batman had a friend, or Bruce had a friend when he was a kid named Thomas Elliot, who is now a famous surgeon. Um, and of course, Thomas Elliot goes to help out, Bruce Wayne. They're best friends. Now we said they played chess when they were kids. It's more of like Risk, apparently, right? Like a mix of Risk and chess. This isn't a real game, right? I've never heard of this game.
I don't think so. If it is, yeah, it's the one I've never played.
Okay, yeah, because they have like little tin soldiers and stuff, and I've never heard of a game that's played like that. But it looks like chess, but it's got the same pieces as Risk. So, yeah. But anyway, Thomas Elliot saves Wayne's life, and it looks like they're gonna kind of rekindle their friendship. Now, um, we do see a man reading this newspaper who's got bandages on his face, and he looks very angry. And the newspaper says, Wayne out of danger, saved by, world class surgeon. Uh, and so we can assume that's the same man on the roof. Is that the same man on the roof, or do you think that is Harvey Dent, which is revealed later?
Yeah, I don't know. He
Because why
also
would
does.
Tommy read the newspaper after he saved him?
That's true. But he is also making those comments like the man on the roof was.
Yeah.
So,
So
they
I'm thinking.
definitely.
This is what I'm thinking. This is one of the red herring pieces, or one of the like things that doesn't make sense in this story. There's not that many considering how many parts are at play. But this page specifically, where we see Hush mad at the newspaper that says like, Tommy Elliot saved Bruce Wayne. It doesn't make sense that he would be mad because he knows he did that, theoretically, because spoiler alert, Tommy is Hush. Uh, but at the time, you don't know that, right? If you're reading this month to month, you didn't know that. So, and by the time you get to the point where it says he's Hush, you probably forgot about this page. So, only in reread would you notice that. So like that one is I'm gonna mark it down as one page, or one part of this story that doesn't quite make sense. Um, and then so we cut to Batman. He's better now. He is recovered from surgery, at least somewhat. Now this is also like unbelievable, but like Batman goes through like brain surgery basically, and he's fine. He's
Yeah,
like
he's good. He's
yeah,
Batman.
yeah, he's recovering real fast. I mean, Alfred's still like, you shouldn't do stuff, and so does Thomas Elliot when he stops by to see how his buddy's doing. But he's like, you just had brain surgery like 6 days ago. What are you doing out of bed, Bruce? And it's like, yeah, I mean, I had foot surgery earlier this year, and I was like out of commission for like a month. So, brain surgery or any other kind of surgery, you're definitely not going around as Batman unless he's on the Venom again or something. But
I, I mean, Batman does whatever it takes to get the job done. So
that's true, because he shows up at Arkham now that Killer Croc is, um, imprisoned there, and he actually like pisses off Killer Croc on purpose to have him smash through the glass so he could like knock him out and get him like in the middle of all that. Like he got him to tell him some information he wanted, um, and and then also like he wanted him to break out so he could track him because he put a tracker in um, Killer Croc's spine or whatever. So we also get a little bit of Amanda Waller in this, which I don't think we mentioned the first time.
no, yeah, that was cool. I don't think I would even have known who Amanda Waller was the first time.
Well, Suicide Squad was out by then, right?
Was it okay? Maybe I don't. I don't
I mean,
remember.
Suicide Squad 1 came out in like 2016, and
Oh,
2 I
that's
think
true.
came out in 2019. So
That's true. Okay.
yeah, but so Amanda Waller's in this, but she's just like You know, like you owe me one, Batman, basically, and I don't like this. And Batman's like, I don't like you. So, but yeah, there was like they faked this whole interaction. You know, Killer Croc didn't kill anybody at least, so he's like, I like Batman's like, don't worry, guys, you'll get hazard pay or whatever. I was like, oh man, like yeah, thanks. I almost died. I didn't know this was part of the plan. So Batman is able to track him. He's thinking like Killer Croc will lead me back to who did this because Batman still doesn't know Poison Ivy had something to do with it. Um, so he does that. He's tracking Killer Croc, and as he's doing that, he's driving on a bridge. It's raining and stuff, and someone shoots out his tire. Now I don't even know how that's possible because, and even he said this, but his tires are like full of not air, so I don't know how they break and rupture and all that. They're like un unpoppable tires, but
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, for again, Batman thinking that far ahead, he would think of anything that would stop his tire would not like a bullet or a spike or whatever.
yeah,
So this has to be a big bullet or
a
something. Or,
special bullet.
yeah.
A hush bullet. And yeah, so but apparently, there's a bullet that he had that could do it. And so uh like Batman's, car flips and he gets in a wreck. But luckily for him, Batman has Oracle. Now, I don't know if we mentioned Oracle, but Oracle is Barbara Gordon, who used to be Batgirl. When she was shot by the Joker in Killing Joke, they made that canon by making her paralyzed in the comics, and she then became like the man behind the desk or the woman behind the desk. So she's like on all the comms of all the Bat family, and she's giving them information as they need it and feeding them, blueprints of buildings and maps of the city and stuff like that. So she's like the eye in the sky kind of thing. She is the internet for them. So she is tracking Killer Croc while Batman was doing, getting a car crash. But um, so she tells Batman, okay, he's at this place, go over there. And then we cut to there and we see Catwoman is once again with Poison Ivy in like the greenhouse. And this is where Killer Croc has gone and he's all pissed at them. And uh, as he's fighting with Killer Croc, all of a sudden the police show up because Amanda Waller betrayed him and betrayed Batman, and they capture Killer Croc and take him away. And then Catwoman, it turns out she was there because she wasn't actually talking to Poison Ivy right now. She was like pissed off that Poison Ivy, controlled her, and she don't like it when other people control her. So she gets a little friendly with Batman. We see them kiss, and we see Batman even like give into the kiss a bit, which is, we always see them like maybe he gets kissed by a woman, but he always like is stoic and doesn't like go into the kiss or anything. But this time he like grabs her, pulls her close, they make out in front of a big moon, and and yeah, it's like super romantic or whatever. And so their relationship's building.
And she basically is like, because she was mad at Poison Ivy and she realized that, she turns on her and she's like, well, she's in Metropolis, like let's go, and like I'll help you and let's go get her.
Yeah, and one of the things I liked about this section is that because they're going to Metropolis, Bruce thinks about the time he went to Metropolis with Tommy when they were kids, and they saw the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, fighting the Icicle, who's like some 50s villain or whatever, some Golden Age villain, kind of like Mr. Freeze or whatever, or Killer Frost or whatever. Is that his name?
Are you talking about Captain Cold?
Captain Cold. That's what I'm thinking
Okay.
of. Yeah, and yes, he's one of those like ice villains or whatever. But they saw that and they were very like inspired, and that's one of the things that kind of stuck with Bruce Wayne, and probably led to him becoming a hero as well. Um, but yeah, so Tommy goes with or he sees Tommy in Metropolis, and he's like, "Oh, why don't you join me for today or whatever?" So they kind of hang out for a bit, and then Bruce stops by the Daily Planet to say hi to Lois and Clark. And what do you think about this scene where like Bruce is flirting with her?
I loved it. I mean, especially doing it in front of Clark. I think that's pretty fantastic.
Right. So they obviously Lois knows both of their identities, right?
Oh, I don't know. I assume I assume that this was like she would know Clark's at this point, but I didn't know if she would know
Yeah, they
Bruce.
say she knows Clark's, but I feel like she knows Batman's as well. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, whether she knew or not, it's still, like a playful flirt back because Bruce is like he's out in public, so like being the like playboy, like, hey, what's going on? Especially to like the Pulitzer Prize winning Lois Lane, who's also famous. I think it's fun, and especially doing it in front of Clark. He's like, "Oh, hey, Clark, I didn't see you there."
Yeah, I liked it. It's kind of like Batman knows that Superman can't do anything about it in public, or else he'll reveal himself. So he knows he can like totally hit on Lois with no repercussions and kind of like wink at Superman and be like, haha. But there was one thing we brought up in the original podcast about this where we thought that, Poison Ivy was doing something with the flower girl or whatever. And that's how she got um, Superman on her side later. But I don't think so. After reading it this time, it didn't make any sense that would be it. So I'm not fully sure. Um, yeah. So Catwoman and Batman, go out at night. They're trying to find Poison Ivy, and they do find her. And they rain on her parade. They start fighting and whatnot, and then all of a sudden, as they're fighting, she basically is like, "Oh, I brought my champion too," because she's talking to Catwoman, like, "Oh, you brought your Batman. I brought my guy too." And all of a sudden, Superman shows up, and it turns out she has him under her spell as well. Now, John and I were talking about this. They do explain like, "Oh, she put kryptonite in her lipstick," but and that she got that from Lex Luthor. Like, she was able to figure
Who we
that out.
should say is president right now too in the comics at
Yes,
this
Lex
time. So
Luthor is
I
president.
didn't realize that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and also who's running his LexCorp is Talia Al Ghul, who goes by some other name that's weird now. But yeah, it's Talia, so it's Ra's al Ghul's daughter, or Ra's al Ghul, depending on how if you grew up with the animated series. um, but yeah, so uh, that is interesting to me that like uh, Poison Ivy is able to. Does that mean that she made out with Clark
That I mean, that has to be, but that's so weird.
or
Like,
Superman? I should say.
or yeah, Superman. Well, I don't know. Maybe she
I
that
don't
would
think so. They don't. I don't
doing
think
it.
she knows who Superman is.
Yeah, I guess that would be weird. I would say it would be easier for her to kiss Clark than it would Superman. I would think, but
Yeah, for sure.
also yeah. So like, it's still like confusing. So like, she's got kryptonite particles, I guess. I'm trying to break it
Yeah,
down in my head.
kryptonite dust in the
Yeah,
lipstick.
in the lipstick, and so that makes his lips just weak enough for her
Toxin to go
control
through.
to go through. I guess like that's
Yes.
like I'm trying to work it in my
Look,
brain
that's
how.
not the crazy thing. I'm talking about how does she kiss Superman?
Oh,
Like
okay.
how does she get close enough to kiss him
To kiss him, that's true.
without him being like super speed away or frost breath or
He let it happen. That's what they
uh-oh.
don't want. That's what they don't want. They don't want
Ooh, that
Lois
would
to
have
know.
been spicy to add into this. That like he could not resist her even from far. They could have said like she has like pheromones that she releases through the plants, and that intoxicated him or something.
Oh yeah.
And that let her get close enough because by the time he realized he was too close, it would have been too late. Um, they didn't do that, but but that's number two of the like hard to buy parts of this, or things that don't quite make sense. But anyway, so Batman and Catwoman, they escape. They get out of there as fast as possible. But Superman, they know Superman's going to follow them. So Batman pulls out a kryptonite ring because, of course, he has that. He's ready for Superman at all times. And uh, right when he does that, he puts on the ring. Superman bursts through the wall, and now they're in some kind of like underground tunnel that's like lead lined. Um, it looks like the inside of the Hadron Collider or something is what I think it looks like, but it's not that. It's just like the maintenance shaft for the city's electric grid, is what I'm assuming it is.
I think so, or that, or maybe it's tied to LexCorp because this is LexCorp on one of the walls.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But
maybe. Well, maybe they had a government contract.
yeah, that's true. Maybe.
Who knows? But anyway, they have a big epic fight, and it comes down to um, Bruce being like, "You can't kill anybody still. Like, I know that even though you're mind controlled, you're such a goody two shoes that like you will not kill anybody." So he, because he was fighting Superman, he had Catwoman. Now that she got away because of the distraction, and she captured Lois, threw her off a building. Superman was able to save her, and in the process, break free of the mind control because he disobeyed what Poison Ivy did. Um, and so that that's how he broke through. And Clark or Superman was like, "Yeah, like I appreciate that, but also like you were gonna let her die." And he's like, "Nah, I knew you were gonna break free. Like I got faith in you."
Again, Bruce is always a step ahead. He knew that. There definitely is no way he was just chancing it.
Yeah. And then they find they team up all together now, Superman, Catwoman, and Batman and Crypto, and they find out where Poison Ivy is hiding, and they get the money back that she stole. I don't remember. That was the point of this money. I think was to fund the organization. The organization that wait, is that what it was? I can't remember. This is one of those points that it gets lost in the twists of all the different storylines here. I can't remember if this was for Hush for some reason, or if it was like a red herring, so Batman would follow it and it didn't really have to do with anything. Um, because I think she's been working with Hush this whole time, but we don't know that yet, or we didn't know that at
Yeah,
this
we
point.
didn't know that yet at this time.
Um, so anyway, that's the end of the issue. They capture Poison Ivy with the help of Crypto and whatnot. Then we cut to a couple days later, I guess, is the next issue. And Tommy and Bruce are hanging out more with Selena and what's her name? Leslie Tompkins. She's the old woman that runs like the homeless medical shelter, um, like does like free medical stuff for homeless people, or for the poor and unfortunate in Gotham. And they're doing like a benefit at the opera. So Tommy and Bruce are there with the two ladies, and they are watching this as part of the benefit. And it's Pagliacci, so it's the sad clown opera. And in the middle of the performance, all of a sudden, Pagliacci's costume rips open, and it turns out it's Harley Quinn, and she's robbing the place. Um, and there's a very important scene where she robs Thomas Elliot of this little jade circle that he has around his neck. It's like a necklace. And it turns out that's what his mom gave him. We find out that um, Thomas's parents are dead as well. So that's very meaningful to him that his mom gave him that pendant. So, Bruce leaves, turns into Batman, gets in costume, flies down, starts fighting with Harley Quinn. And yeah, I don't know. I thought this was pretty epic. What do you think about this fight with Harley Quinn? I thought she was fun in this.
Yeah, I loved it a lot. And I love that she has one of the like ridiculous clown Joker big guns that's like the caliber of this bullet would have to be like at least a tennis ball size in a handgun. And like even it shoots holes in Batman's cape that big. But like she's just holding this hand cannon, shooting in, and then doing her acrobatic stuff and whatnot. Yeah, it was a really fun fight, and then Catwoman jumping in there. Yeah, I love Harley Quinn. So
Yeah, I like the way he wrote her. It was very, very much the animated series version of her. Nowadays she's not the same as that. Not bad or good, just different than the animated series. So I kind of liked reading that she was very much the animated series version. Um, but they do have her like talking about Ivy and stuff in this. So there was a bit of like, oh, they have a relationship. It's just not a romantic one like they do now. So, um, yeah. So anyway, Thomas Elliot starts following her because he's like, she still has his mom's, necklace. And so he follows after her, and Batman's following after him. And then as Batman breaks into an alley, as Thomas follows her into the alley, he like breaks through the door, and then we hear a bam, and then we see the Joker has shot Thomas Elliot in the chest and killed him. And Batman snaps. He goes ham. This is almost like the Killing Joke, where he like goes all out, almost killing the Joker. And like all the flashes of Barbara and how the Joker paralyzed her, and you know all this stuff is going through his mind. He's about to, and also Jason Todd. That's okay. The one thing that I really like about this is every issue does set up the next reveal. So like, you know, we're talking about Jason Todd right now. In the last issue, they did talk about like Barbara, and or not the last issue, but a couple issues ago, they talked about Barbara and how she became Oracle. So they set that up for now. We see him get mad in this issue when he's fighting Joker. And now he's talking about Jason Todd, who was the second Robin who was beat to death by the Joker in the 80s and is dead. Now, I think when we originally read this, we didn't realize that Jason is dead, like in this. Uh, Crisis or Infinite Crisis has not happened, and that's when he was risen again. So he is not revived. The pain is still the same. He has never been back as of this moment. So this is like the first time they ever teased him coming back, as far as I know.
Okay, so yeah, that does make that way more impactful.
Way more impactful. But yeah, so you know that's why Batman was going crazy as well, because he's like, you not only paralyzed Barbara, but you killed Jason, and I'm not going to let you hurt anybody else, and you just killed Thomas, my friend from childhood. And so he's about to go ham and snap the Joker's neck, and Catwoman comes in and stops him. And I mean, he's so upset that he actually, because the Joker gets away, he actually punches Catwoman and knocks her out. I was like, that's pretty extreme. Uh, I mean, especially if they're supposed to be like lovers now or whatever, or like, going after each other. So sexually. So, yeah, it's kind of a problem, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, like again, and still, yeah, like I, yeah, just to punch Catwoman like that.
Let's just
that was
say
pretty.
Batman's got some red flags if you're in a relationship with him.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll hit you, which is, when he's angry. That's a problem, I would think.
Yeah, it's different if they're like you're fighting someone, right? And it's like
right, and it like, oh, you accidentally did it. But like, this is her trying to help him, and he's like, "Shut up, bitch." Basically, he doesn't say that, but like,
no, but in his head, he's like, I can't let her stop me.
Yeah, and he's like, punch. Like that's an option for him, which is kind of unnerving if you think about it for a Batman. Like, I don't think Batman could do that now, and like not have anyone say anything about it. That would be like a very special Batman episode where he deals with domestic violence. So, but anyway, so he knocks Catwoman out and goes after Joker, who's still running, through the streets, giggling and taunting Batman. And then he proceeds to try to beat him again. He's got him on the ground. He's punching him, and then all of a sudden, a click. Batman hears a click behind his head, and it's a gun getting cocked, and it's Gordon. And Gordon stops him from killing Batman. He even shoots it. He shoots Batman's ear off to show he's not messing around. And I guess at this time we didn't realize it either, but Gordon is not a cop right now. He is just a citizen. I don't know what happened, but he's just a citizen with a license to carry, apparently. Yeah, so Gordon stops him from killing someone. And he's also saying, like, Joker is saying, like, I'm innocent. And it seems like everybody realized that Joker was innocent. This was some kind of setup. And then as Gordon and Batman are walking away, we see Hush is standing over the body of Tommy, and from like high above, so like no one can see him. And he's watching Batman and Gordon, and yeah, this is the moment that is like the first red herring of who is this new person, this Hush, this bad guy. And he pulls out a coin and he flips it, and so you're like, oh my god, it's Two-Face. Then we skip ahead again to the next issue. Like I said, they don't follow right after each other with like the storyline. They like jump ahead a couple, weeks or whatever every time. So we cut to Thomas Elliot's funeral, and Batman is obsessed with who killed him and all this stuff. Nightwing stops by the Batcave as Batman has been obsessing. It says he's been up for 48 hours, just like straight, and he's trying to figure this out. And Nightwing's like, maybe you should sleep and take a shower and shave. And Batman's like, I guess so. But then he's like, I'm gonna go meet Catwoman. So he's up for a booty call, but like not to sleep or take care of himself. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they do. I guess he also is like, I guess we could take a night drive together, and like that. And Nightwing's like, yeah, that'll clear your head, right? And like, let's take a car. I only bring it up because I love the splash page of the Bat Cave with like every Batmobile iteration from like just about everything from like movies to
They
comics
even
to
have the Batman and Robin Batmobile in this.
yeah. They have the one for like the big spot outs to me are they have the one from Batman Returns with Val Kilmer. They have the 1950s one. They have the animated series one. They have the one from Batman's first Batmobile in like the Bat right side, the Bat right, the right side. So yeah, like there was a lot of
Yeah, they got
cool
the
little
60s
call outs
TV
there.
show one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they take whatever the new one is, I guess, and they're driving, and they just happen to see while they're driving a robbery taking place on an armored car. It turns out the Riddler is stealing stuff, stealing money like usual. Um, he gets caught by Batman. Uh, and Batman's like, I don't know, this is kind of weird, but there's something interesting here in this money, like in this like it seems too simple. Like why would the Riddler? Everybody else seems to be tied to be working for this new guy, but the Riddler's just doing the normal crime. So he uses his infrared goggles to notice there's like handprints inside of the truck that they robbed, and it's like ash from the Lazarus pit. So he's like, "Oh my god, it's like Ra's al Ghul." Um, Something to do with him. And then we cut to Arkham, where we see the Joker's being held. And is it Arkham or it's the zoo? Right? Maybe
No,
I'm
it's
wrong.
it's Arkham. So they're at Ark. It's two things
Oh,
going
it's
on at one
two.
time.
Yeah, it's two scenes. I'm
It's
sorry. Yes, you're right.
yeah, Joker at Arkham, and then Batman and Catwoman at the zoo.
Yes. So there's two things going on. Batman or Joker's at Arkham. We see who we think is Hush walk into his cell, and Joker's like, "What the hell?" And then he takes off his bandages because Hush has like he's got a trench coat and he's got like mummy bandages all over his face. So he takes off the bandages. It's Harvey Dent, and Joker's like Two-Face, and then Harvey's like, "No, I'm not Two-Face anymore. I'm Harvey. I'm back to my good self, and I'm a lawyer still. I passed the bar again, and they allowed it. So,
Oh,
so
sure.
yeah. So I'll be your defense lawyer basically because I know you were innocent, and I will defend you." And then at the same time, we're seeing Batman and Catwoman meet up at the zoo, and Batman's like, "You know what? If this is gonna work, you need to trust me. I need to trust you. Here's my face." So he reveals who he is. He reveals that he is Bruce Wayne to her. This must be, I'm assuming, the first time this happened because I'm assuming this was a very big moment in the comic. Like, oh my God, she knows. And then I thought this was funny because she's like, oh my God. And she kisses him and he's like, oh, it wouldn't kill you to take a bath because that's exactly what Nightwing said to him in the Batcave. Um, so yeah, so now Batman has an idea that maybe Ra's al Ghul is the person behind all this because he doesn't know, and we currently, as the audience reading this, think that Hush is um, Harvey Dent. So, but as we said before, that's not the case really. But it's a red herring going on right now. So now that Batman's like, okay, Ra's al Ghul has something to do with it, I'm going to get Raz's attention. He kidnaps Talia Ghul from one of LexCorp's jets because she now runs LexCorp. And so he kidnaps her. And then when Batman shows up at his Batcave, he's like, um, I got to get ahead of Ra's because he's already probably knows about this. And then when he comes to the Batcave, there's like a sword sticking out of his console. He's like, oh my God, Roz already knows he must have killed Alfred, and then he runs upstairs, and Alfred's like, "What's going on?" So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, but then we cut to later that night where we see Gordon sleeping in his bed, and then he wakes up, and Two-Face is standing in front of him. But he's like, oh my god, and he pulls out his gun. But then Harvey Dent walks forward, and we see his face is healed completely, and turns out he's all good now. He's a good guy. So we're not sure. Like Gordon is not very sure about this, but we, as the reader, think that he is Hush because he had the same bandages and everything. Then we cut back to the desert where Ra's al Ghul is waiting for Batman, and he's like, "Where's my daughter? Fuck you! I hate you." It turns out Talia is just hanging out with Catwoman, and Ra's is like, "Well, you're stupid because like I already sent like all my assassins to take to find her, and so um, he's we see like the fight going on between them and like Ra's al Ghul and Batman. At the same time, we're seeing Catwoman fight. Um, is it Lady Shiva? Yeah, it's Lady Shiva she's fighting. So, do you know who Lady Shiva is, John?
No, actually, I didn't know who she
Okay,
was still.
Lady Shiva's awesome. She is like the most. I think she is the most like skilled fighter in the DC universe. She's an assassin. She trains the Question. She trains Batman at some point as well. This was all like in the 80s, I believe.
She's a more skilled assassin than like Deathstroke?
Yes.
Okay, well.
She is the most skilled martial artist in and assassin, I guess, in the DCU. She's also the mother of Cassandra Cain, who is Batgirl or one of the Batgirls in the 90s.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah. It's one of those things, but she's a very, very, formidable character. If you don't know who she is, you'd be like, okay, Catwoman's fighting her. She seems formidable, but it's not the same weight if you don't know who she is. So, Batman is fighting Ra's al Ghul, and Batman goes all out because like he's not messing around this time. He thinks Tommy's still dead and everything, right? Like Tommy, he went to his funeral and he's still pissed about all that. And if Ra's is the one that caused that, then he's gonna be extra mad. So he fucking stabs Ra's right through the chest, which I thought was pretty hardcore. Um, and then Ra's is like, "Oh, god damn it!" And then Ra's is like, "I look, just give me back my daughter. I'm not the bad guy. Someone used the Lazarus pit. It wasn't you or me. So like, someone used it, and we're not sure who and why. So, and that was one of the things here. I don't think I remember or understand who used the Lazarus pit. Do you remember?
No, that's what I'm saying. It says who in your life would wish to come back from the dead. So I
Right.
guess we're supposed to assume
So
at this point.
that is set up for something that doesn't make sense. That's a setup for something that happens later on that doesn't make sense in retrospect. That's the third plot point that doesn't make sense in this thing because it's supposed to be a red herring for later on when Jason Todd comes back from the dead. You're supposed to think that Hush resurrected him. But that's not what happened. So, little spoiler, but we're almost there. But anyway, we see Catwoman gets the shit beat out of her by Lady Shiva, and then Lady Shiva gets beat up or knocked out, I should say, by Talia al Ghul because she's all beat up by Catwoman and stuff. So she's like surprise attacked by Talia, and then Batman finds Catwoman, and then Talia's all salty because like they have a past romantically, and by past I mean she raped him and then had Damian Wayne. So,
Yep.
I
Yeah,
mean,
like Talia is crazy.
yeah, Talia's insane, but so's her dad. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I guess that's your runs of the family.
Yeah. So, but she's like, she kisses him, and he does not respond to her like he did to Catwoman, and she's like, oh, I could taste her on you, and like, oh, you must really love her, and all this stuff. So, then Batman takes Catwoman back to the Batcave where Alfred treats both of them. Then there's like this fun little interaction between Robin, the Tim Drake, and Catwoman because he's like, "What are you doing in here, woman?" And like, he gets all protective, and they have like a little tit for tat back and forth. which I thought was fun.
I love Batman had to get in between him, like, all right, kiddos.
Yeah, yeah, he's got to be like, Tim, this is my, this is my squeeze, my main squeeze now. So I need you to calm down because you're cockblocking me, kind of. That's basically what he said. But
Yeah,
then,
basically.
yeah, he told it, and then he pulls off his mask and he's like, this is how much I trust her. And then Tim Drake's like, oh my god, like you must really trust her if you told her that you're Bruce Wayne. So it's kind of confusing to him. He is a teenager. This is the third Robin, in case anyone doesn't know. He is the only Robin who figured out that Batman was Bruce Wayne on his own. He was such like a little sleuth that he figured that out, and that is why Batman, after Jason Todd, he didn't have a Robin for a long time because he was like, "Oh my God, Jason got killed. I don't want to have another child death on my hands." And then when he met Jason Todd, or I mean, when he met Tim Drake after he found out like who he was, um, he was like, "Oh my God, you're like worthy of kind of like the Bat mantle." And in this, he's very much like you're going to be Batman someday, like you're my successor, pretty much, because you're as good of a detective as me and stuff. So I actually really liked this, and that's one of the things I was saying about this comic being really good for first time readers is he says all of that information that I just told our listeners in the comic, but without it being too wordy. He's dropping all this info like, where Batman's like, when Jason died, I couldn't, he's like thinking inner thoughts about it as he's looking at Jason. And you get all this information of who Tim Drake is, who Jason Todd is, why they meant so much, all that stuff.
Yeah. He's at 3 lines basically on it is that Dick saw Robin as a thrill. He outgrew it. Jason saw Robin as a game, and that's probably what got him killed. But Tim, and he's like, basically, it goes a little bit longer, but Tim's like, Tim's basically like the next world's greatest detective. I see it in him. I know it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's why I think he does that really well for every character they introduce in this. And if you've never read Batman, I think, or if you don't know who these other, you might know Dick Grayson Robin from the animated series or from the 60s show, but you might not know that Jason Todd was the second Robin, Tim Drake's the third Robin, all this stuff. So, like, that's all very important information that he throws in very easily without overloading you with too much, continuity. And I fucking love the way that he wrote this stuff. So Catwoman's had enough of Tim. She steals one of the bat cycles and drives off, where she runs into Huntress, and they have a cat fight basically.
I did love that. She's like, what are you doing with the bat cycle? What did you stole it?
Yeah, and of course, like, Huntress is she's like interesting character. She's very at this time she is trying to like get Batman's approval while also being like, I can do it on my own, kind of thing. So she is trying to become like her own hero and woman in this world where there's a lot of Bat family members. And if Batman is her dad in the other world, but in this one Bruce is like, I don't have any kids. I have my 3 boys that are like the Robins, right? And he basically considers them children, but she's kind of left out a little bit and is kind of fighting for a position in the Bat family. So she fights Catwoman for a while. And it seems like she's also like, not just that, but like she's saying that a lot. Like she's saying like, no, like I have to show him and I can't, like I'm not afraid of you. And like something's going on with her mind. And it turns out that she's been poisoned by the Scarecrow. The Scarecrow gave her fear toxin, and Scarecrow also fear toxins Batman, because then it's weird. He gets shot in the face with fear toxin. And you think like once he like reveals that, oh, like, okay, he captures Scarecrow. Then all of a sudden Hush shows up and he's beating up Tim Drake. And he has Tim Drake and he's like, I'm going to kill him. And then he actually stabs Tim Drake in the neck, which is pretty hardcore, I thought. And he's like, your son's going to die. And then it's revealed that he pulls off his bandages and he's like, don't you remember me, Dad? Basically. And it's Jason Todd. And of course, Batman's like, what? Jason Todd's revived. So that's why they set up the Lazarus pit thing, because the only way that you could revive him would be to throw him in the Lazarus pit. But it doesn't make sense because after Batman fights him and like you think, oh man, this is Jason Todd. It turns out Batman's like, you're not Jason Todd because Jason, knew who I was. So he wouldn't call me Batman. He would call me by my name, And so it's like, he figures out that it's not Jason Todd. In reality, it's actually Clayface, who's dressed up like Jason Todd. So Clayface is working for the real Hush, I guess, ostensibly, and is pretending to be Jason Todd right there. So now this just makes Batman madder because he's like, who the fuck is Hush? Why is he messing with me? Now, at the same time, they find out, like, Batman talks to Oracle, and Oracle's like, something's interesting, like, I tracked down this signal or whatever, and it's actually coming from your Batcave, and it turns out the sword that was stabbed into his console was not just a sword to direct him to Ra's al Ghul, and I don't think Ra's al Ghul stabbed the sword there. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, John, but I think Hush stabbed the sword there, making Batman think it was Ra's al Ghul, but then it was a second clue that he didn't think about, which was pointing to the console, because then we get this whole sequence where Batman's like, oh, he was pointing to my console, and that's the whole thing, and the only person who ever worked on my computer console in the Batcave was Harold. Now, when we read this the first time, we did not know who Harold was. And I got to be honest, I still don't know who Harold is really.
Okay, cool.
I have seen him a little bit in the comics, like mentioned. So I'm like, okay, he is a thing. This wasn't a random guy. It was like a person that was in Batman continuity during the 90s who Batman gave a job to be like the tech dude to keep things running in the Batcave, I guess. And so Harold is like, he realizes, okay, Harold must have been part of this or something. So he finds Harold. Harold's on a bridge. Harold's like, I'm sorry. I think Harold's a little special. He's like, he said he could heal me. So I think he has like some kind of mental disorder where, he wants to be healed. And whoever the bad guy is saying like, told Harold that he could heal him. And so that's why he went along with this. And Batman's like, I'm sorry. Like, he tricked you or whatever, and he can't, and you're being exploited. And as Harold's about to say who it is, he gets shot and murdered. So this is how they kill off Harold. This is the official death of Harold in the comics as well.
Oh,
a very big death, John.
Yeah.
You might want to pick this issue up for the death of Harold key.
The death of Harold. I know. I think we were calling him the janitor.
Yeah, we were like the janitor.
Some janitor that came and worked on Batman's computer
or something. The janitor. I don't know. But yeah, because we just couldn't remember his name because I had no idea who this guy was when we first read it. Anyway, so he gets shot, and then Batman turns around, and we see finally fucking Hush for real shows up, but we still think it is Two-Face. At least I think so, right? That's what we're led to believe.
Yeah. So the second red herring was
Jason Todd, but now we know it's not. So it's still for the reader. Yeah, we still think it's Harvey Dent. So he begins to shoot at Batman. Batman dodges all these bullets. They fight. And Hush is actually, taking him on pretty damn good. He beats the fuck out of Batman right when he's about to make like his killing shot and like cut Batman's neck. Gordon shows up with Harvey Dent. And he's like, put Batman down now or whatever. And so now we know it's not Harvey Dent. And then Harvey shoots whoever this is, this Hush, and we're like, oh crap! Like, I am. Who is this guy? We thought it was Harvey this whole time. And then as Hush gets shot, and they have him, like Gordon has him under arrest now. Batman, picks up Harold's body, and then, is very sad and everything. And so, in the background. Oh, wasn't there something like, oh yeah, that's what it was. Like Batman has Superman like burn a tracking chip in his head because Batman figures out, how would Hush be able to know all my all my locations and stuff. He must have put something in me. And he's like, but when? And then it turns out like Clark scans him and he sees like a microchip on his head. And then that's when this is when I think Batman figures it out. I'm pretty sure he's like the only person that's been in my head recently.
No, because it's still like because so like I think we misspoke a little. So like Hush actually, when he gets shot, he falls in the water, and Batman's like trying to he jumps in to try to
Oh,
see
you're
who it
right. You're
is,
right. You're right.
and then Jim's like, "All right, Harvey, like give me your gun. Why
I'm
don't
sorry.
why
There's
are
too
you?"
many people with trench coats on and
No,
like
they look very
in
similar too.
silhouette.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So and then yeah, like and then Batman comes up because he doesn't find him in the water,
Yes.
and is like, "Oh, okay, sorry, sad Harold or whatever." And then yeah, then we see Batman like, "Hey, yeah, you've got a like some kind of chip in you. It's a homing device." And he's like, "Well, what the hell? Like, where did that come from?"
Yeah. How could that happen? And
Because yeah,
so,
he's thinking this whole time about all of the horrible things. Harvey is repaired okay, but he lost. He basically had lost Jason all over again, and it's not Harvey, and he lost Tommy, his long lost friendship. So like, who is this guy?
yeah. So because the chip is there, that's what makes him solve it. That's what puts all the pieces together in Batman's head. And so he goes to Arkham Asylum and he's talking to the Riddler, who's doing a crossword puzzle as they're talking. And he says, basically, who is the criminal mastermind who's getting all these different criminals to work for them? And, you know, basically he figured it out. It was done during the surgery, is when that like tracking chip was put into him that Tommy did. And so, um, basically, it comes out that the Riddler is helping Hush. They kind of formulated this plan together, which is why I think Jeff Loeb's premise of this story is Batman is smarter than the Riddler or Hush, but is Batman smarter than both of them together, kind of doing their own thing and mixing it together in a new way? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that is like the premise for this, like why they can get one up on Batman is he's not expecting it to be a plan devised by two different people. And um and so that's what it is. Basically Batman figures out that Riddler was like kind of one of the masterminds and the other person was Tommy Elliott.
Oh,
And
also because in his computer he had Harold program in subliminal messages
oh yeah,
that
I
only
forgot
made
about
him
that.
think of Tommy, like basically if he would ever need a surgeon. So
Yeah, it was like just pictures of Tommy that would be subliminally in all the information that Batman was looking up on his computer.
every 10th one was like a nude.
Yeah, exactly. It's a dick pic. But yeah, like that's why he like randomly thought of Tommy Elliott when he needed surgery earlier in the very beginning of all this. So, that's the whole reveal is that Hush is Tommy Elliott. Tommy Elliott got away, so Hush didn't get captured in this. And the reason why they were able to like do all this to Batman and he wasn't able to figure it out is because it was two masterminds kind of mixing their plans together. So that is the end. Um,
And why did Hush do all of this?
right. We don't really know. Uh, did we right? We don't. They don't really tell us why.
The only thing that we kind of get from it is
It's because his family, right? Like Tommy. Okay, originally you think that Tommy is mad at Bruce or Batman because he does know who Batman is. So because obviously he does because he put that sword in the console, so he knows. Batcave is under Wayne Manor, so Bruce Wayne is Batman. So he's originally mad that, or we think he's originally mad that Thomas Wayne did not save his parents. He was only able to save his mom.
yeah, he said there you go. When they're fighting, he says that I wanted both of my parents to die, but your father ruined that. He saved my mother.
Right. Well, no,
Basically,
no,
he
but
was
but originally we think that he's mad because he didn't save his dad. But then we find out that Tommy's mad because he wanted the inheritance. He actually cut the brake lines of his parents, and he wanted both of his parents to die. But Thomas Wayne ended up saving the mom, which made it so Tommy Elliott didn't get his fortune fast enough, and that is the reason. Which to me is a little unsatisfying.
Yeah, it's just like so he's just a spoiled rich kid who wanted his money now or his money then rather.
So, he got it in 10 years instead of, right then, whatever. Um, and he still ended up like a world class surgeon. So, what's he bitching about? Um, but yeah, so I think that's the end of it. And, we went through, we jumped around a lot in the first one, and I gave it a 4.5, you gave it a 5. So, John, what'd you think of it this time, and what would you give it?
So after rereading it, after getting more of the points maybe that we missed the first time, um, the art is still great. Again, yeah, Jim Lee's art's pretty fantastic. Maybe even a little more appreciated this time, I would say, than the first time I read it. Um, the this the points of the story that still were still enough for me to be like, like they weren't quite like, yeah, like they weren't quite like the satisfying, and even on the reread and didn't not remember anything. So like, I didn't remember everything. So when I re-listened to the episode and then rereading it to like make sure, I understood everything, I still was like not quite satisfied with everything. I would say it's definitely better than I remembered it, but still not like not in my like top 5 Batman stories that we've read. So I would say I would give it a little higher now. Yes. I would say I would give this a I'm not pushing for art alone, even though the art is good. I'm going to say I would only give it a 6. I would only bump it up a little more in my
Really?
book. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'm giving this a 6.5 and maybe even a 7. I had a blast reading this. Uh, Even with its flaws, I think as a introduction thing to like new readers, I think it's very strong. And then I really liked thinking about it as if each issue came out 1 month apart. I think that is where it's the strongest, like basically how I read it was like I'd read a couple issues, take a break, come back to it, read another couple issues, take a break. So I kind of was giving myself a little bit of time in between so that it felt a little, not just one big storyline, but there was actually breaks. And I felt like it read way better that way. That's not its fault that they collect it.
That's
uh,
that's true. And thinking that you saying that it's not, I'm gonna say it's not gonna change my grade this time, but like because us talking about it in this was the first time that I really thought about this, like how this came out over the course of a year. And so it's still like, yeah, I definitely see that. And that's part of like it, like, yeah, it's definitely a better, and definitely again, the writing is much better than I thought I remembered it being. And yeah, the story is good and it's fun. Yeah, it is a lot of fun, and there's a lot of really fun moments. Um, I just it's not it's not for me, it's not up there. It's not like The Long Halloween, which
oh,
I
totally. Yeah.
again, yeah, so things like that.
Yeah, I'm
So
not arguing
or
that
The Dark Knight.
necessarily. I'm just saying, like, for me, I had a blast reading this more so than I did the first time. I think because I have like proper context for it. And also I think I've learned how to read comics better because I have to do like the Hellblazer podcast where I read it by myself, then I read it to everybody. And while in the process of that, I'm reading them week apart, so there's time in between. So I'm kind of like absorbing every issue fully. And I don't think when I first read this, I did that. I think I just kind of breezed through it, thinking, "Oh, this is kind of like a fun story," and then didn't really absorb anything like it should be. And I think the first time I read this as like just a Batman fan going in, like when I read it in 2005 or whatever, I think I read it the way you're supposed to. Like, I don't know anything, and I had a blast. And I think when we read it in 2019, I was like, I know everything, and I'm, you know, too cool for school. And this is like, I already knew that this was kind of considered like to comic aficionados, like it's everybody says it's great, but it's not as cool as everybody says it is. Like a little too hoi polloi or hoi polloi for it. Like I'm snobby. I was snobby, I'll say, um, and I think that was kind of like coloring it to me. Whereas now I'm like, no, I just like to read comics and I take it for as it is. And it's fun because I don't have or I have all like the context for it, but I do recognize that if you didn't have the context, it would still be fun. So I'm giving this a 7. I think this is pretty strong, uh, a pretty strong like entry into the Batman mythos, especially if you consider like all the different kind of reveals that happened. That at the time, if you had read this, you would be like, "What?" If you were like in to Batman, the whole Jason Todd reveal. Could you imagine? You get that issue, you read it, you're like, "What the hell?" It's Jason Todd. He's back, and then you have to wait a month to find out. Oh no, it's not.
It's not. Yeah, that's true.
But like, when you read it in that context, it seems like it would be a really fun read, which is pretty much what you want with comics. Like I just want to have a fun time reading. Um, I'm not looking for like there are those life changing comics like by Alan Moore and stuff, but most of them aren't that. Most of them are not nearly as good as that. And the best you can hope for is that they would at least be fun, and you don't even get that most of the time nowadays. So it is nice to read this, which is full of all this continuity, and you think it would be weighed down by it, but Jeff Loeb does a really good job of introducing all these different characters, kind of throwing them at you, but you understand where they're coming from. You understand who they are, at least enough to enjoy the story. And um, and even though you don't know who Jason Todd is, if you've never read Batman before, you still are like, oh, I know it because he introduced it. He showed us why Batman cares about Jason Todd so much, And so when it's revealed that it was him, even though it wasn't, it's like, oh my God, like that still hits, even though you don't have, you didn't actually read it. You know what I mean? Like you didn't actually know that information from the comics years ago, right? Um, so I think it's a very strong outing for a first time read, and it's a fun read if you know the context. Um, and then if you're too cool for school like we were before, or at least I was, uh, I got all snotty about it. So I'm giving it a 7, which raises it quite a bit from a 4.5.
Yeah, that's a huge
uh,
jump for you.
yeah, I'm actually considering buying this in absolute form again.
Oh wow.
That's how much I enjoy this. So uh, yeah, I'm a convert. It's turned me around. I've seen the light, the Batman Hush light. Um, yeah. So with that being said, I guess you give it what, a 6, right? And I give it a 7. So we're definitely both higher than we were. So we're gonna have to figure out what our new standard of medium is. Uh,
Go back to the drawing board. What are
yeah,
we
back
gonna
to the drawing board.
No,
That's
I just think we have a good this was like, yeah, is it better than Hush? But we've rated so many things now. We I would say we didn't really have any like too many stinkers on the podcast overall. But
yeah. I try
yeah,
not to.
like yeah, I mean and not that we dictate, always necessarily reading the best, because like,
No,
Matt
but I
reads.
try to curate what we read so that it's not crappy.
Yeah, I think for the most part, we always take suggestions too, and like sometimes Matt pre-reads it, sometimes he doesn't like or has read it before, but yeah. Well, speaking of reads, for our poll this month, for our patrons, if you want to be a patron, every month you get to vote on our second episode of the month, and this month we're keeping it kind of like family values with the holidays coming up. So we've got Death in the Family,
Which is actually the
that's
story very very relevant to this because that's Jason Todd's death.
yeah, that's kind of what made me think of it. We've got Something is Killing the Children, Road to Perdition, and I made sure to space this at the end so I could say it differently. Is we also have Death of the Family.
Yeah, which if you don't know is like Zack Snyder, or is it not Zack Snyder, Scott Snyder uh, comic from the New 52. It's a Batman story where like Joker, I think, tries to kill all of the family members, the Bat family. So
Yeah, that's cool. I hadn't heard that one. So when Matt and I were talking, and he said, I thought he just said the same one twice, and just I was like, what? Death in the Family twice? What? So yeah, so it's good to know. Yes, Death in the Family, Death of the Family.
yeah. So if you'd like to vote on those, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And speaking of patrons, we'd like to thank our patrons, Hoku, Otaku, Mike, Christian, Matthew, Kyla, Joseph, Kalia, Isaiah, and Kevin. You guys are awesome. You keep the lights on. We do it all for you. We really appreciate it. And also, I mean, if you're cool enough to be one of our patrons, you also got last month in October a very awesome Dracula episode that I loved making. I fucking loved that book. So, got some good feedback from one of our patrons about that. So that was fun. And also, every month we do a Patreon exclusive episode. We have not picked one for this month, but we will let you guys know what that will be in the second episode. And yeah, it's always kind of like a fun, like what are we feeling like episode usually. And yeah, it's an extra episode for you guys. So we try to pick some kind of obscure thing sometimes. Sometimes we do longer books, that we don't normally get to do on the normal podcast. So that's fun. And so once again, if you'd like to join Patreon and get that exclusive episode and vote on what we do in the second episode of each month, you can go to patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And with that, I think we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yeah, thanks for 5 years, and here's to hopefully at least 5 more.
5 more. God damn. Anyway,
we appreciate y'all. Thanks so much.
Yes.
See you in the next one.
See you guys. Bye.